Thank you, Carlos. Thank you for your kind introduction, and thank you for the invitation as well. I want to thank also the International Manifesto Group and Friends of Communist China for this opportunity. I'm very honored to be in this gathering with so many friends and comrades in an important moment where I think we need to speak up on what's going on and this attempt at dividing the world again in this Cold War mentality between good and evil, between so-called democracies and so-called autocracies, which is what we've seen in the last couple of days with this summit. I sit behind me. You can see a portrait of Francisco de Miranda. Francisco de Miranda was uh, past March 28th, would have turned 273. It's his 273 anniversary of his birth. Francisco de Miranda was a hero, not only for the Venezuelan independence movement, but he was the precursor of the independence movement in Latin America. He is the creator of the idea of Colombia as a nation, which at the time was imagined as a united country of Latin American republics and not just the Colombia that we know today. Well, also Miranda is the creator of the flag that has a common history, the flag of Venezuela, of Colombia, of Ecuador today. Miranda was a man who fought in the American Revolution, and this is why I bring this up, because sometimes there is the idea that countries that speak out against U.S. imperialism or against this type of democracy that doesn't correspond to our democracy or to the vision that we believe is necessary for our region are somehow anti-American or anti-U.S. Better said. And I mentioned this because it's not true. We have a history of cooperation and exchanges in real battles for real freedom. Miranda fought in the American Revolution, but also he brought back in his expeditions towards Venezuela for to engage in the independence process. He brought back U.S. citizens who were also engaging in this independence process, who fought and lost their lives here in Caracas and in other places of this country, trying to fight for independence. So this is a history, of a conflict between the elite of the United States and the people of our region in Latin America and the Caribbean, who have struggled for their own sovereignty and lives with dignity. Uh, Comrade Margaret mentioned a few minutes ago that this is the 200th anniversary of the Monroe Doctrine. Monroe, as a matter of fact, was while he was writing his or preparing his statement that he gave 200 years ago, or prior to that, actually, he was in London, I understand, or as a diplomat at one point, where while at the same time that coincided with Miranda being there also in London, trying to find support for Latin American independence. And since then, there were their letters where they would say Miranda is a threat. We shouldn't support this crazy lunatic who's fighting for Latin American independence. This is really something that we don't support. We don't think is smart, because at the end of the day, what the U.S. elites were looking at was not a struggle for democracy, liberty, freedom, all these ideas that they every so often they come out and try to express and try to promote and impose with their own definitions, but they were really looking to build an empire. And this is as far back as 1823. The idea behind the Monroe Doctrine is simply that they wanted to close off European intervention in Latin America until the U.S. had enough strength. This is, again, you can see these in letters between Monroe and between Jefferson as well, where they would say, that they wanted to hold off any European attempts to come into our region because they wanted to wait till the moment where the U.S. was strong enough so that they could take each of these republics one by one, piece by piece, and incorporate them into the U.S. project. This, my friends, has not changed in 200 years. This premise, names have changed, people and clothing and everything else has changed, the way we communicate, the way we do a lot of things. But the idea that the U.S. Elites have that Latin America is somehow a part, belongs to them, where they call it backyard, front yard, whatever. This has not significantly changed in 200 years, and this is what we have to discuss every time we come to this issue of so-called democracy or summits on democracy. They have nothing to do with democracy. They have nothing to do with real human rights. They have nothing to do with international law. What the U.S. is doing is creating this confrontation between those who defend U.S. interests and those who defend sovereignty and dignity. There's no respect for our self-determination. Venezuela is currently, like many other countries, but Venezuela is currently subjected to unilateral coercive measures. These are illegal according to United Nations standards, but we are being subjected to these measures because the United States wants to promote a change of government, because they do not respect the democratic process that has taken place in this country during the last 23 years, where people have taken control of their own destinies. This year also marked, in early March, the 10th year anniversary of the passing of President Hugo Chavez, who led the Venezuelan people in 1999 to a true revolution that we're still trying to defend and move forward. When we talk about democracy, that's the democracy that we have, as that's our vision or our idea of democracy. We wrote our own constitution. We voted for it. We approved it. It wasn't imposed, by anyone. We created our own constitution. We participated in the drafting of the constitution, and the outcome of this is a democracy where you have, people are consulted in important issues for the country. People have, we've had over 26 elections in 23 years of all types of elections. We have community participation. We have the protagonism of the people in order to make their own transformation. What has been the reply of that democracy up in the United States? Well, first they tried, a coup, as you know, against President Chavez. They tried an oil lockdown where they blocked, they financed the blocking of our oil industry in order to, create chaos. They've had massive funding of the opposition and interfering to create interference in our democratic process. And after President Chavez died, it was even worse. The attacks have been more acute and more reiterated. Violent riots where they gave Venezuelan fascists, the tools so they could, go to the streets and try to promote some sort of coup or overthrow of the government. These are fascists that burn people alive here in Venezuela based on their skin color, because they, the darker you were, the more the probability that you were supporter of the revolution, and that was the logic. They had mercenaries attempting to overthrow the government. We have had attack of drones, assassination attempt against President Maduro and the high government officials. We have legal persecutions against the government, against not only against high government officials, but also against diplomats. Right now there's a diplomat in a U.S. prison called Alex Saab, who was trying during the pandemic to obtain, to find ways so we can obtain, because of the sanctions, we had been blocked, our medicine had been blocked, our medical supplies. He was trying to find ways of obtaining some of these supplies for Venezuela, and he was currently in prison because of that in the United States. And of course, we have the imposition of these so-called sanctions, which again, they are unilateral coercive measures. They're illegal, and we continue to face the pressures of this campaign. So the United States asks of Venezuela, that we provide, besides all of these attacks, we're the ones that are supposed to have, to provide somehow democratic credentials. We are supposed to, show the world and them, that we want to carry out, that we want to, we're going to allow elections to take place, and and they talk about all these conditions that everybody has had in Venezuela. Elections in Venezuela have been free. Many people that have come to Venezuela have, as observers, and have accompanied the process, have said this, have been witnesses. Even Jimmy Carter was witness to this, to the effectiveness of the Venezuelan process. But somehow, they twist the narrative, they twist the concept, they twist this word democracy, and they did all these attacks. They're responsible for all these attacks against Venezuela, but we're the ones that somehow have to show that we're committed to democracy, just because we're not allowing their people to take power undemocratically in this country. We are allowing the elections to take place and for people to decide. And people, this is what they don't accept. People don't want a neoliberal program in Venezuela. People don't want this capitalist exploitation that we have seen in other countries. The group of friends of the UN Charter was created a couple of years ago, and it's important because we have 20 countries that also are fighting for democracy outside their own countries. They're fighting for democracy within the international system, the multilateral system, where people, where the United States are promoting this idea, and we talked about this before, of the international rules-based order, which is really their rules, is not the rules of the international community. The only accepted rules in the international community are the UN Charter that we've discussed earlier. So we have to. I think it's important for us to strengthen this space and to promote these ideas as well. Just last thing before I know I don't want to take too much time. Just one thing that I think is very important that happened during this conference in the U.S. that I think we have to all be very aware of. The new, we don't see coups, invasions, and all these violent acts of interference that we used to see before in Latin America. Everything's more subtle now. Everything is done through financing of the opposition, through financing of NGOs. There was, at the same time that the conference was going on, there was a committee hearing in the United States Senate where Leopoldo Lopez, who has been heading the fascist faction of the Venezuelan opposition, who is responsible for the deaths of some Venezuelans because of this movement that he led. He announced that he had created this thing called World Freedom Congress, together with other pro-U.S. leaders throughout the world that somehow are engaged in this anti-democratic regime change operations. He announced that he was starting a school in Zambia in the next couple of weeks, and the plan is that 1 million of these militants, so-called militant or activists, of democracy activists, are trained in 3 years. That's 1 million people receiving U.S. funding towards what they call freedom, towards what they call, what we understand is subversion against, our sovereignty and our established governments and our democracy. So I think this is something that we have to denounce. It's something that we have to be aware of. This movement is there. This movement is getting financing from the United States. It's getting financing from from all these so-called NGOs. They are promoting and they're working together, so they have this network of regime change operations, and that just makes it more important for us to unite, to talk to each other, to strengthen our political education programs, to strengthen our denouncing and our debates, because people must be aware of this anti-democratic movement that is trying to somehow impose a U.S. liberal agenda on our countries. Thank you very much.